In 2014, we are well beyond the days when borders can be redrawn over the heads of Democratic leaders. This morning, I signed an executive order that authorizes sanctions on individuals and entities responsible for violating the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine or for stealing the assets of the Ukrainian people.
Welcome to Washington Square News. This is Op-Ed Live. I'm joined today by Harry Brown and Peter Keffer to talk about Ukraine-Russia relations. Thank you for joining me. It's good to be here. So, for background, Russia's interested in Ukraine for two primary reasons: to maintain ties with the EU, which is the very, very big one, and to preserve its access to the Black Sea. So, Putin's aggression in dealing with Ukraine hasn't been that surprising. But if the international community continues to act so tepidly, to respond so tepidly to Putin, Putin will continue to act aggressively. William Hague, the UK Foreign Secretary, has called this crisis the biggest Europe has faced this century. So why is everyone being so passive? Why are America and the EU just sitting back?
Well, Hague was right in this response. This is one of the most dangerous situations in foreign policy to confront the Obama administration. But there has been this reluctance to intervene. The current policy to withdraw from the G8 summit and cancel the visas will not worry the Kremlin as well. But the other option of economic sanctions is unpalatable for the EU, which has $460 billion annually in trade with Russia. So I think the US is finding that its allies in Europe are very hesitant to employ economic sanctions. So I think this is the reason why we've seen such a reluctant response. And secondly, I think it's too early to tell. We are only in the first week of this. Yeah. So I think events will unfold in the forthcoming weeks.
Well, the reason why Putin has felt free to violate international law in such a flagrant manner as he has is because we've developed his reputation for reluctance.
The US,
right?
Yes.
And this is seen clearly in our dealing with Assad last year in August and September. And we're now seeing the implications of that. James Clapper, who is the intelligence chief under the Obama administration, he recently released an assessment of Assad in which he concluded that he is now more powerful now than he was when we posed the threat of a slight intervention, the slightest military intervention which he could have posed, actually. And Putin saw this, and he adjusted his position accordingly. Putin also saw what happened when Obama refused to put any meaningful pressure on then Egyptian President Morsi. He also saw the White House's reaction to China sentencing civil rights activists and scholars to prison sentences. The White House simply tweeted, that it was deeply disappointed. These are very ineffectual measures, and they leave room for states to violate international law and really feel no consequences for doing so.
But there's a duality of opinion about between policy analysis, both at the State Department and at the White House. Is this part of a long-term geopolitical strategy for Russia, or is Putin reacting to events on the ground in real time? I believe the former, that this is part of a long-term strategy to ensure that Russia regains itself on the world stage as a great power to confront America. We see the same sort of trend with China, who released the ADIZ, the Air Defense Identification Zone, both trying to ensure the borders around their states. I think we're seeing very similar trends, both trying to counter America.
So since we can't draw another red line, as we did with Syria, and it failed, what does the United States to do? Why are we being so reluctant again?
The reason why that red line is such a disaster is because we failed to really follow through in the threat that it kind of implicated. And the reason why we did that is because within U.S. foreign policy, there really is a false dichotomy. We're living in the shadows of pretty poor foreign policy decisions on behalf of the Bush administration, and it's created the sense that intervention into foreign affairs is really all or nothing. It's either we put boots on the ground, intervene in a very staunch military way, or we sit back and we do nothing. And this has caused the Obama administration to lean back from answering those hard questions and rather than tackling them head on.
And it's also the economic costs involved of intervention. like 300,000 jobs in Germany are tied to Russian trade.
That's why Germany's kept so quiet on the matter.
Exactly.
They have lots to lose.
Right. I mean, there is really a plurality of different measures the U.S. could take to combat Putin's actions, and the Obama administration has yet to seriously entertain those.
What do you think they are? What are the next steps?
In my view, I see the next steps as being some sort of NATO initiative. I feel as if there needs to be an immediate emergency session for NATO to kind of weigh the options which it can take now. And this can range from increasing the intelligence gathering to working within an existing NATO-Ukrainian commission so that it might share information with Ukrainian forces or otherwise advise them. This can also extend as far as to assign a NATO joint force command based in Naples or elsewhere in Europe to really play the same role as a UN peacekeeping force would do in this situation. These are very provocative actions, that's a given, but I feel as if they're necessary in order to deter Putin in the future.
Harry, what do you think? Yeah, exactly. It requires a provocative response. I think reducing the level of Russian gas and oil amongst the EU member states is a logical next step. It should be both a short and long-term goal for the EU. Germany, a third of their energy is derived from Russia, and the majority of Ukrainian energy is derived from Russia, not natural gas and oil. So I think that's where they should focus their efforts.
Yeah, we have to kind of get away from our dependence on Russia and overcome our fear of Russia's economic clout going forward. Thank you for joining me.